Again, we started yesterday, but instead of going that way, we're going to do the very novel thing, and we're going to go this way. It's a warm morning. So this is where we're at. Not sure what ghat this is. You can see one temple, two temples. It looks like a temple is adjacent to probably an old valley, and then either one or two more temples after that. Not a whole lot different than what it was yesterday, just probably fewer people. The Ganges is a little bit clearer. Monkeys abound. Lots of food down here. Yesterday in particular with all the rice. Another nondescript ghat, but apparently a place for drying clothes. And I think all castes are here. Although Ganges doesn't care. Family picnic. Here's a beautiful building. I have not seen anything like those two balcony towers with that other tower in the background. Isn't that lovely? And you can see there's another tower right up here. Although that square tower seems to have been an add-on, doesn't it? It's interesting at this ghat, everything is painted this mauve, is that the word? I don't know whether it's to safely guide the sailors back home or just because it's the tradition here. And there's that ghat. Beautiful building. I wonder what was necessary to make it fortress-like, to be that high. Looking at this tower on the right, it seems like there probably was a great deal of detail up there at one time. It may just be difficult for us to see, and probably at both levels. It's this tower that's curious. I'm guessing that if it's a hotel, they added that to give their patrons access to the ghats directly. The left side of this ghat and palace. I'm guessing when these wealthy people built these places, they built the ghats as a way of getting merit, but for the people as well as themselves. I'm just guessing. How pretty and atmospheric this might be if there wasn't for the ominous smog. This is the Digpatia Ghat and its palace. The aftermath of celebration. Notice way down there that long slope for drying. Seems to suggest also that these large palaces, this lower floor may have not much behind it at all. Maybe a little bit of storage, but its primary purpose was probably just to put the upper four floors that were occupied at somewhere near the grade at the top of the hill. This is the central lower entrance. Your man is probably slowly fashioning a piece for the repair of this boat over here. And it's with this kind of craftsmanship you see in this very slow way that built most of the monuments that I've seen in India, particularly the old ones. Guessing is a toilet. Another cafe trying to play off what they think is the brown bread cafe. It's actually the brown bread German cafe, German heritage. I'm guessing that if some wealthy people had chose to build a house here or a palace, we wouldn't be seeing that slope. Clearly laundry day today. In front of Bhadaini Ghat. These look a lot like bed sheets. It occurred to me. But I mean, you don't see any entrances here at this lower level, probably because it's just a faux level to get height for this palace. Established 1807. It takes us back farther than I thought. See men walking hand in hand. They're not gay, they're just really good friends, and I'm not being funny. I'm not being sarcastic or cynical. That's a normal thing in India. Here we are at Narad Ghat. Nothing impressive here. The number of boats is phenomenal. And my guess is that it's the same as the tuk-tuk and the video store dynamic. Huge flock of some kind of bird. It's a large bird. We worry in the world about wildlife. What's the effect of pollution on birds who fly through it? In other words, consume great amounts of it compared to other animals, perhaps. Mansarovar Ghat, and someone who decided they'd update that building even if it didn't fit in with any particular style. I'm also guessing that the Ghats were a way that the wealthy, when they dominated this area, made sure that their waterfront, which was so incredibly valuable then and probably even still, neat and as of quality as their palaces were. Here a guru teaching a class. Almost statuesque. My bet is they've spent more money in the last several years on their signage to funnel people into Brown Bread Bakery, which was empty yesterday except for me when I was there, than they have on Brown Bread Bakery. Again, nothing terribly interesting. That larger tourist boat seems interesting. Assume its value is you're up higher and maybe you can get out of the sun, but then you couldn't see much perhaps. There's 3 cleaning stones. I guess they've covered all the bases and trumped Brown Bread Bakery. You see, there used to be something here of design, but it's weathered away. This is interesting. Instead of a ghat, it's a large platform, but that looks like it would have been the remnant of a palace. I'm not sure if this right side's connected to the left or not, but you can see the double towers on the left suggesting there was a building there. This is Kedar Ghat, popular with Bengalis and South Indians. And across the top of them slowly. Imagine if the towers that we've seen of that shape all had that kind of beautiful coloring on it.
You don't like to see? Hello, uncle. Where are you from, sir?
Substantial collection of lingas. Some are built in, some have been added, some are quite nice, like that one on the left in the middle. Don't know if that ghat is related to this building. Very pretty building. I wonder what its provenance is.
चलो जल्दी करो
Shooting from those steps, and that lady tapped me on the shoulder, and I thought, oh no, another tout, and I was ready to wheel around and karate chopped her hand, and I saw it was her, and I laughed, she laughed, I tapped her on the shoulder and said thank you for cleaning, and we moved on. If you think that's bad behavior on my part, moments before and after, the ladies and their children were begging and poking at me. This is a pile of refuse left over from yesterday, but these people have these little plates which are really cheap. They put just some food on it, and that's what they toss into the sea after some kind of a ritual, and it's for the benefit of their deceased forefathers. The beginning of a boat, although you wonder why. Presumably these rocks are here so that no one can steal it. I wonder why, and that there are enough boats, aren't there? This construction answers that question, I guess. All the rest of the wood is pretty simple, but this bow piece is nicely shaped. Remember, I'm just running through these ghats just as a matter of form. You can see a tower that suggests that once there was a palace there at Lali Ghat. It was composed of two platforms, one on either side of these stairs. Apparently long been a site for cleaning. We're coming towards a burning ghat. There's a person being prepared apparently. This just doesn't look that old. Nothing much impressive here, that's for sure. I wonder, where does that rubbish even come from? Is that ugly? I don't know what this food is. It's some kind of something or other that he pours that cream, which may be called ghee on it. I don't know what they're using this water for if they're pumping out of there. I'll pan across the Shri Ghat temple and the Mansarovar Ghat. where I just walked. Here, a tawdry attempt to make that look decent once upon a time. But here, looks like a red sandstone building. It's probably not, it was just painted that way. But it would have been, I think, of many of these, one of the more majestic looking ones. Again, if we assume that that tower onion cap or dome was painted like we saw earlier. Look inside that tower. Certainly gives the impression of a fort. From here, the other bank looks mainly like a large mud flat or a hill. And then some trees there. Prabhu Ghat, so presumably this was a platform for another large palace, mostly gone it looks like. And here another one. This being Mansarovar Ghat. Shri Mishadraj Ghat and Janki Ghat, actually looking pretty nice. This is getting very boring. Here are the tools of trade. It's like some tourists taking a few moments off. It's nice. Here you can see the current, which I hadn't noticed before. Mainly because you can see trash floating down it. Are there any photographs of this from 1805 or whenever photographs came about? Janki Ghat. Be sure what these big towers are. Ah, wait, they're intake water works. So maybe they're sucking water out of the Ganges. Wow. Janki Ghat. Bhadaini Ghat. A modest palace. It's interesting that here's a huge intake sieve, if you will, probably 30 feet above the ground. The only thing I see that's sucking water, but I could be wrong, is that green pipe. Notice the filth on that supposed filter, at least keeps logs out. I assume their first big problem is how to get the filth out of the water they're trying to suck up. Not down to the end. See, this little building is just probably an afterthought on a palace that sat right where that white building is. In fact, that white building might have been it back when it had its facings. This is the Chauki Ghat. This might once have been quite a pretty building. Could still be restored, but why bother? What's the point? Benares, 1878. I think that's what Varanasi was called then. A funky old little boat. I wonder what it was used for. This is the Ganga Mahal Ghat. I think Ganga is another name for Ganges. There, a large temple. Assi Ghat. We're at the end of all the ghats now, the south end. Probably a pretty old haveli, maybe rose to the level of being called a palace. But some pretty construction after that. Otherwise, this is the end of, or the beginning of Tourist Row. Maybe a little bit down there, we'll go take a look. This is cause for optimism. The piping necessary for some new kind of infrastructure here. You can see them hand digging the trench there. Looks like a pretty little park, so I'll see if I can get inside. Dug by hand. This was once a pretty little park. It could be again. Hopefully someday it will. Another small river flowing through this area. And this is a graveyard for bicycle tuk-tuks. Signs of hope or progress. This very much looks like a mosque. Whether it is or not, I can't be sure, of course. But the profusion of pretty columns make it seem so. There are little hints of the complex this used to be. But it fits the apocalypse scenario. But it shouldn't be a mosque because of these human figures up here. So what I'm trying to get to...
How do you do?
Good, how are you? Finally found what I was looking for. I doubt it's a very old tank, but it could have an old precedent. But it's actually all pretty new right now. Said many times before, the reason I pursue some of this stuff is not to see the stuff, since this is pretty uninteresting really, but rather for the fun of walking through the neighborhoods that it takes to find them. I haven't seen goose for sale, so I don't know what they do with these. This magnificent tree may well have seen this area when it was fresh, with the old relic of a bicycle propped up against that wall. And I wonder what it will see before it dies, long after I have. There's nothing terribly unique about these temples anymore to me. You do have to wonder how long it will be before newer buildings will encroach right up against it. This looks like a large, somewhat original tank with its little platforms and its top of the castle, top of the palace wall motif. There were these little sub-platforms all along too. That looks like it would have been a haveli or a Mahal or palace. This is a temple, a very pretty temple. If it were made out of marble, and I don't really think it is, although there may be some portions that are, like those stairs. But it does look like it could be marble, like the columns. It's very pretty. And it's in a nice pretty park, except because of the filth of Varanasi, it's all covered with dust. We'll go over and tap on that stone at the moment. That certainly seems like white marble, and that also. That looks like it's made out of iron, so it could be from the 1800s. Maybe that Samadhi plaque I just videoed will tell us. Now let's go look at this water feature to market on the side of the Bowery, or I'm not sure you'd call this a step tank as much as you just call it a step well. Colorful ladies, colorful fruit, colorful vegetables. Colorful candy too. I put a lot of these flowers here because probably this is a continuation of that celebration from yesterday, and people are going into this temple. There's a wall that they have built to cut off these old steps that border the current street, so I don't don't know why they're doing that, but this will probably be buried. Interesting is that there are boats that you can either rent or at least that they putt around in. Now they could be using this for the sewage, or the water treatment place with these fountains, who knows. This is interesting, how much of this is remnant versus what was once here. I don't know. It's Buddhist apparently. Can't really get a sense of what it might have been like. Wish there had been some kind of drawing. They look like buttresses of some sort, but don't know. And about this fill that we're looking at here.
Oh, it's definitely fill, yeah. I wonder how they did it though. Because Buddhism started 2,500 years ago, 500 AD, yeah? And I'm pretty sure they didn't have, because these are ceramic tiles, so bricks essentially.
Does the fill that you looked at down below seem to be that kind of fill that's laid in there quite precisely, it looks like?
Nah, it's different.
Totally different.
Speech, yeah?
Huh.
But I'm pretty sure they didn't have the technology to build or to make the bricks. So whatever happened, whenever Buddha was here 2,500 years ago, it definitely didn't look like this.
It certainly looks like there were multiple platforms. Who knows how far all of this extended out, or what it might have looked like. My friend from Australia, who's a person heavily involved in large construction, said this kind of rock that we see here and the way it's laid in is perfect for stabilizing soil. So it might have been a fill for more of this temple that ranged out farther. But there in the background, very pretty garden area. Why or what it was or what it's for, don't really know. Now we're at the Thai temple in Sarnath, outside of Varanasi, just a little ways outside. Pretty grounds. Looks too new. Water features pretty. Might give us a hint of how some of the other water features we've seen might have looked, with flowers, probably far more than what we have here, but pretty. All of this, including that big picture of Buddha, looks very, very new. I'll just show you how old this is. It was put up here in 2011. This complex is so new, so fresh of cement, that it just holds no intrigue for me, though hopefully it does for those who believe.
Or is it a completely different tree altogether?
Behind the fence there is the Buddha Stupa. Just outside the Jain temple and monastery, I suspect, or at least it once was, but this probably houses the monks of this temple. This is pretty on the inside compared to most of what you see. You wonder what the significance of those two big vertical things are. Are they just lamps or something else? As with anything Japanese, very neat, very finished, very clean, very refined, and in its way, beautiful.
Burning in the street and full.